I haven't done one of these like talking head things in a while, and I've been trying to do more around showing like process and creativity and all those different things. But I have two questions that have been on my mind lately. What are they? I wrote them down. One, is there enough room for me? And two, what does it mean to become a professional? These are somewhat related, which is why I'm bringing both of them up at the same time. I'm going to kind of just start with the first one of like, is there enough room for me? What does that even mean? Context. That's always important. I'm in this phase of my life where I have been thinking a bit critically around like, what do I want to be doing next? What is that path that I want to explore? And one of the paths that I've been pushing towards is becoming a craftsperson. So if you haven't noticed, I've posted some things about spoons, carving spoons. I've started exploring like pottery as well. And I'm thinking about like a lot of these different crafts that I would like to pursue and do. And so whenever I like dive deep into like a thing that I'm really interested in, I usually dive in deep pretty hard. And so you end up following a bunch of people on Instagram, you watch a bunch of people on YouTube, and when you do those things, it starts to feed the algorithm for you. And so what starts to happen is you start to see all these different people who do this thing that you like to do. And that's where the question comes up, is there enough room for me? It's just like, maybe it's the overwhelm of being able to see that like, there are already so many people doing it, why do it, right? What do they say? It's comparison is the thief of joy. I was actually listening to someone, there's an ant on me. I was listening to someone recently on a podcast, actually, and it's a very famous crafts person. I'm not going to really say it, but their name. But at the end of the podcast episode, they were basically asked, like, what kind of like advice would you give to someone who was starting out on this craft? And the way the answer that I heard from this person was not necessarily an answer that I really was hoping to hear. The way I interpreted it was like, it's really, really hard right now, and it's a very crowded space at the moment. And so that tells me like, well, damn, that means is there already too many people? Is there already too much, and have I like quote unquote missed the boat, right? I mean, logically, like, the answer, right, is no, and I feel like it'll always be no. And the reason why I can logically comprehend this, but emotionally it's maybe a little bit different, is because I think about like restaurants, right? There are so many restaurants in the world, and there are restaurants opening and closing all day, every day. And to me, it's just an example of there are going to be industries where there's going to be people who are doing tons and tons of things and doing the same thing essentially, but it's about how you're going to be able to tell your story and tell a compelling story so that people will want to gravitate towards what you have to offer. So to me, as a craftsperson, I'm also trying to figure out like, what is that like narrative, what is that differentiating factor in comparison to other people. I think we're at a moment in time where if you're like a craftsperson, or you have any type of like artistry to the work that you do, the biggest distinguishing factor is going to be the narrative that you tell, and whether or not that narrative resonates with people. Because at the end of the day, why do people want to buy the thing that you offer, or gravitate towards the thing that you offer? It's because they're like, I relate to you, or this speaks to me. So part 2 is the question, what was that question of, I just went on a whole thing about that. Okay, hold on. Okay, so the second question is, what does it mean to become a professional? And I've been thinking about this a lot too, is because like, if I'm pursuing this journey as a craftsperson, at what point am I considered a professional in this space? And I think there's a lot of overlap with my past like design experience and just, working with like newer designers in the space. I don't know, I think at one point when I was talking to some people, they were like, at what point can you call yourself like a designer? And the answer that I always gave people is like, if you're designing, you are a designer. So does that same application apply in this scenario as well? My thought is yes, it would apply to this scenario, that if I'm doing crafts things, then therefore I am a crafts person. But does that mean I'm a professional though? Do you only become a professional if there is some exchange of value happening? And usually the most common of that is a monetary exchange, right? So people are paying you to, purchase a service or purchase an object that you create, and therefore, if you are making money from the thing that you're doing, you are therefore a professional in this space. I think I struggle with that though. Does that really measure whether or not you're a professional? Could you have someone who was doing a craft for over 20 years, right? They have never created a product out of an exchange for something, more specifically monetary. Would they not be considered a professional? Maybe they've created a bunch of the pieces that they work on as like gifts. And over 20 years' time, they have consistently been doing it every single day. It's just not a quote unquote business per se. My gut is telling me that they are, well, I think it's the nuance of the way you position it, right? Like, perhaps they aren't a professional in the field, but they have professional skills, so that if they wanted to, they could become a professional in the field. If they're not making money from it, like, at that point, it's a hobby, right? Is it? Is it a hobby? Wouldn't it just be based on exchange of time as well? Maybe it's also because we live in a world where, like, money is how you quantify things. So therefore, if you are making money from it, therefore you are a professional. Even if it's not a lot of money, but it's still, you're making money from it. What if you were measured as a professional based on the way that you are able to teach something instead? If you're able to teach someone how to do something, maybe that's how you are qualified as a professional. And hypothetically, usually, if you teach someone, you don't have to get paid for it, but you could get paid for it. I don't know. And I'm not saying it is or isn't professional. That's just why it's a question. And so if you're watching this and you're kind of in this like limbo, I'd love to hear your story of where you're at. I'd also like to hear your opinion on what you think a professional is and what that means, especially as I've been on this like journey, I guess, and it's always going to continuously be a journey. I'm just like at this place in my journey where in my plans I'm starting to get to a point where I will have to be, I guess, lean more into the professional side of things. In some ways it feels scary.